Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of BBCG and Friends, episode 4. I'm really rolling along here, and as always, thanks to Kirk and the Minifan Network for their support. I'm very excited to have Brian on today. Brian on Twitter is Peregrine172, so please follow him. And Brian reached out to me after a couple of the other first episodes and wanted to chat about music. So, Brian, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. I really appreciate it. I'm nervous because I'm kind of on the side of KMS stuff, but you have a great topics that you go through, and as long as it's not politics or whatever, it's awesome to talk about movies and music. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The last thing we want to do is talk about politics. Uh, so you're from Maine. Did you grow up there?
No, actually, well, yes. I was born in New York, but lived most of my life in Maine. So correct,
So
but
where in New York were you born?
Long Island.
Okay. So I lived in Northport.
I
Where
was
were you?
Port Chess.
Look at us. Did you ever go to the Tara Inn for burgers
Uh,
over there?
yes, I have.
Oh my God. Oh, crazy. So my wife was from Northport. I ended up out there, through her. I grew up in upstate New York, though, went to college in Westchester and then ended up at St. John's. But that's small little world. Clemmer also is out from or lived in at least that neck of the woods, I believe.
He was on a different side of it, and I do not vouch for Clemmer. But no, I'm just
Okay.
I was in Rocky Point. It's
Okay.
just outside of Port Jeff.
Yep.
But I only lived there for a couple of years before we moved up north to the God's country, I guess. But yeah,
Okay. So how old were you when you moved?
3.
Oh, 3. Okay. So you really
It's all gonna make sense.
it's all
But
gonna make sense. So you're a
yeah,
Maine guy. So
yeah.
so so let's talk about your childhood and what music were you listening to and who were some of your influences in your life that kind of drove you in a certain direction musically.
So I was born in the late 70s, and I have an older brother by 6 years, an older sister by 4 years. Um, so they had different musical tastes. My dad was a big influence, but he liked classic rock and blues, so I'm a huge Clapton fan. I mean, from then on. But my brother was, Prince, Madonna, Duran Duran, and so I got all of that. And then, you know, MTV happens when you're
Yeah.
living there, and
So
all of a sudden it's like this is crazy.
so talk to me about your dad and Clapton. Was he like, all in with Clapton in terms of, in Cream and Blind Faith and all the various bands he was in, or did he kind of pick it up when Clapton went solo?
No, he was early on, with with Cream, but what's the breakbeat?
Delaney and Bonnie and Friends,
No,
Blind
but
Faith?
definitely Blind Faith. I have that album, and I remember when he got it for me, I was like, Dad, I don't know if I can show people this cover, but
That's right.
right. So, but it was like I had the balance of the two, and like later years, I was more into punk rock, and this became, as we're talking about, new wave, when punk became somewhat different. So, uh, but as a child of the '80s, we would get home early um, from our parents, so a couple hours, and you had like a couple options. You could watch a Twilight Zone marathon, which it seems like there was always a Twilight Zone marathon, but also it's MTV. So what are we gonna do? Of course, we're gonna watch
Yeah,
MTV,
of course.
and so many different bands that you would never think about. I mean, if we talk about new wave, the Buggles were the first video shown on MTV, and they were
Right.
new wave, and it also became more of like one hit wonders, but I didn't care at the time. I was just like consume anything I can get my hands on.
Yeah, the video killed the radio.
City
That's
Girls.
right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those early days of MTV and Melissa Melissa and I touched on it last week. I mean, there was
Yep.
just, from just Adam Ant and early, Duran Duran and Missing Persons and just a whole bunch of like British new wave kind of, as you said, kind of one hit wonders. Um, but at the same time, there was Elvis Costello and the Police and
Absolutely.
U2. And In Excess was just starting in the early '80s, and it was just a great time. Um, Talk to me about, Brian, the first record or CD or cassette you kind of discovered and said, I need to own this. What was it?
So, my brother is he's a funny guy. Um, and he signed us up for Columbia House
Yeah.
as I was 6. And you know what? You get this stuff in they just do a penny and you get a bunch of stuff. He got us out of all of those contracts. But my first cassette was Synchronicity by the Police when I was 6.
Right.
So,
Okay.
I mean, and to me, it was like I heard the lyric of it's like a humility kick in the crotch. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I just heard that. Is that okay?
Ah,
But it happened, and then you're like, all right, here we go from there.
yeah.
And when you're spending hours on the couch every day watching MTV, you're going to see everything, but you don't think about it until later in terms of like, oh, this is modern English. I'm going to see them on a Burger King commercial in 15 years.
Right. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Synchronicity. So, the Police only had 5 studio albums before they broke up. And it has been my contention for a long time that the first 3 songs of Outlandos d'Amour, which was the first Police album, were the 3 best songs on a debut album, to start a career. So it was Next to You, So Lonely, and Roxanne. And
Oh,
that that album, it was incredible, and that was one of the kind of the key albums. So when that came out, I was like 13 or 14, so that would hit me right in the sweet spot. And my contention also is each Police album, and you may disagree, but each Police album got a little worse.
I would
um
say that each Police album became more about Sting. And I do like Sting in the later stuff, but I believe that like he had such incredible and Andy was awesome and he's still doing great stuff. But
yeah,
uh yeah, I would agree with you on that.
yeah, that totally. And I, in the early part of Sting's solo career, I enjoyed that stuff too. But yeah, that first album and even into the second album was just so raw, and it was just so representative of kind of post punk and slanting more towards new wave. And yeah, they're one of my favorite artists for sure. um what Brian, so what was another band? So you got Synchronicity. Did that lead you down a path to discover a similar sounding band, or kind of were you all over the map?
Well, I was 6 when Synchronicity came out, so I was totally into that because it was literally the first cassette I had ever owned. Um, but watching all the different things with my brother and sister every day after school, who's the Spandau Ballet? Who is Aha, which we now know is like one of the best, videos ever. But we didn't know any better at the time. It's like this is all we're able to consume. Um, but I would say like, you would just find different things. I did love Prince, but I don't he's not new wave. Um Madonna's not new wave. Duran Duran, on the other hand, I jumped in on. Um and I was like, okay, they're doing something that I really enjoy. They're doing it a bunch of different ways. I can listen to Hendrix on the side, but this is not that music. And so I really enjoyed grabbing that. And then after that, it was just everything that would just show up. Um, Madness, or excuse me, yeah. Uh,
Sure.
but I also like there was a weird time with new wave because you would have some ska still like the Specials or whatever, but you would get bands like Bauhaus that you would never know about. Like Bela Lugosi's dead. 90% of people don't know who Bela Lugosi is, but he's
Right.
dead. And Joy Division and one band I think that um, you know really did well, other than Duran Duran, was New Order. Um, and that's the thing about new wave that I find funny now is that it's covered so much
Yeah.
in the past, well, just say 15 years, but probably longer. Where at the time, when it was the early 90s, when it was post new wave, everybody wants to do something different, and it came to grunge. And so that's great. I mean, I love Nirvana, and so it kind of helped to go there. But people thought, yeah, new wave's dead. I'm like, all right, well, it's not really if you're going to keep covering all this stuff. If Simple Minds didn't do the song for the Breakfast Club, are we going to remember the Breakfast Club as much? Like
That is
they had
true.
so many different avenues in that time that kind of gave people volume. Danny Elfman was in Oingo Boingo, and he was also in the Back to School movie with
That's,
Martin
that's right.
Dangerfield.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and so it's
Yeah.
like this whole big Oingo Boingo thing, and now Danny Elfman is in everything that
Yeah.
is done.
So you mentioned there's a lot there. So let me you
Sorry.
mentioned ska. Oh, it's all good. It's all good. You mentioned ska, and one of my favorite bands of all time is the English Beat. So I just
Okay.
love
Yeah.
English Beat, and they splintered off and became two of them became General Public, who had a big hit, Tenderness, and then the other guys joined up and became Fine Young Cannibals, and they had
Oh,
some hits. I think in '88 or '89, "She Drives Me Crazy," and
that's right.
yeah. So love that. Um, Joy Division became part of again when that band broke up. Some of them turned it into New Order, and
Right.
ironically, they Joy Division slash New Order um, have been nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a couple of times now, and hopefully they'll get into because that genre, which would include The Cure and Depeche Mode, both on full
100%.
Hall of Fame. I think that category is woefully ignored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So that would be cool. And then finally, you're gonna like this one. You mentioned Simple Minds. Do you remember the Simple Minds song "Alive and Kicking"?
Yeah, of course. That was, well, later in excess.
No, no, that
No.
was a simple.
Oh, no, no. You're right. Sorry. Yeah, I got it. Sorry.
You're thinking of the album "Kick" by
Correct.
Yes.
Right. No, I went off
Yep.
it. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Aladdin Kicking is a great song.
It's a great song, and I have a little bit of a connection to that song because the video was shot in my hometown in upstate New York. So I want you to seek out, I want all my listeners to seek out the video on YouTube tonight or tomorrow and check out the beauty of the Catskill Mountains, which is where I grew up. And that band, that video was created and filmed in my little neck of the woods way back when in '85 or '86. So amazing. Your musical kind of lineage is right up my alley as well. Another band I love, and I tweeted something yesterday about Squeeze, Black Coffee in Bed. They're one of my favorites as well.
And when I think about all the songs that were probably made fun of in the 80s that keep getting um, remade or covered,
Yeah.
"Tainted Love" by Soft Cell was
Yep.
covered by Marilyn Manson, and it was a banger of a cover. Um,
Yeah.
and people were like, "Oh, that's Marilyn Manson's song." I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
It's a great song. You did a great job of it. But also like Blue Monday by New Order. No, that has
Yeah.
got
It
covered.
was.
But
Nope.
the movie, excuse me, sorry. the song "Confusion" by Blue Monday was in Blade, like the first Blade. It
Oh,
like
okay.
the it was like a scene where they were like in the underground EDM sort of thing, and it plays. And I went to that movie with my brother actually, and he turned to me, he's like, "This is New Order." I was like, "I don't know if it is," and it was like this EDM version of it, and that's what I keep going back to. Is like everybody wants to recreate the stuff that we heard, and it's nostalgia. I mean, if you watch Donnie Darko, you're gonna get all this stuff. You
Yeah.
know, Gary Jules doing Mad World from um, Tears for Fears is awesome, but there's Echo and the Bunnymen in there. All this stuff kind of resonates still.
Yeah, even like, the Thompson twins, they had a lot
Oh,
of hits.
100%.
They were terrific. Um, a little not new wave, but I love the Pretenders. They were a tremendous bands. For me, their first three albums are right up there with anybody's first three albums. Really good stuff.
I think that
Um,
that's a weird thing about with new wave is because it is post punk, but also kind of pre pop that you don't know where to put. Is this band new wave or is this not? Like, is Tom Petty new wave? No, it's not, in my opinion. But some of the stuff he's done in that time, like the early '80s, was kind of that. But I don't, you know, I didn't give a shit. It's a good song. I don't care.
Yeah.
But
No, like we said last week, the charts were crazy with all
yeah,
various categories and genres of music, and it made it so much fun. Now, now the charts are so siloed, and quite honestly, I really haven't paid attention to the charts since 1994. But
it's not
um
worth it anymore, actually. Unless you like Taylor Swift, then I guess it matters. But
right.
I mean, like, can you think about like remember the movie Valley Girl?
Sure.
So the Plimsouls were in that movie. They did A Million Miles Away.
Mhm.
Um, like three times in that movie. They just kept recycling it through. And that's to me, like I love that movie, but I always look back and I'm like, they did not have anybody else to do this scene, but they did it three times in the same movie with the same song. Because that's what the power was at that time. This
and
is what people wanted to listen to.
and of course, Valley Girl starred KMS caller Nicolas Cage. So
That's correct.
yes. So see how worlds collide here?
I'm looking forward to that call from the he has to call in after the 16th to,
Yes.
get into this. But yeah.
There. It would be great to hear him again. Um, Ryan, what was the first concert you went to?
This is gonna sound weird because I did not really I didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up.
Okay.
So I didn't really hit concerts until I was in college and they were just like stupid shit down at UNH. Um, but my first like legit was I saw Sting with my parents and my girlfriend at the time in 2001, I think, in Portland, Maine. Um,
Mhm.
and it was nuts. Like, again, this is a guy I've known for a long time, but I, I could not believe, like, seriously, every woman, and I was worried about my girlfriend. Like, I'm gonna lose my girlfriend to Sting right now, because he was just so good. Um, but later in years, we've become more about trying to go to as many live shows as we can. I'd say the last best one I did is we went to Nuremberg, Germany a couple years ago.
Oh
We
my God.
backpacked it. Yeah, and it's called Rockin' Park. It was mostly like bands from like the 90s or the 2000s. I love Muse, so they were there, and
Okay.
I got to see some incredible stuff, but also camped out with a bunch of Germans. So I lived to tell the tale.
So that was the last concert you saw?
Yeah, that was 3 years ago, but it
Mhm.
was like a 3-day festival. It was pretty awesome.
Got it. So you saw a bunch of it. And if you had to pick one over the years, what would be your favorite concert or your favorite concert memory? What would it?
That's a great question. It's a difficult one too. I've been able to see. I love Muse. I've seen them live in Boston, and it was an incredible show. I also like Tool. Like, there's no new wave stuff, but I had been able to see Tool a couple times, and it's not even if you like their music, but you just go. It's like this incredible experience. Um, so that, but I'm always looking for the next one, unless it's not Primus, because I've seen them a couple times now, and I'm done with them. So,
Yeah, I've never seen them.
and you're okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'll be okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Um, any other new wave thoughts or memories? Were
Sure.
what do you?
I well, so I think that the end of the '80s and the early '90s was an interesting point in new wave, and it was almost like, in my opinion, like the end of disco in the '70s, when
Okay.
people wanted to like push away from that particular sound, um, because it did so well for, you know, I'm talking about disco here, in the '70s or late '60s, and then they wanted to do something else, and that's when, new wave, the punk and post punk pulled over. Um, but then, you're talking about clearing the stage for the early grunge of the '90s, where they're
Yeah.
again pushing against what we're seeing on MTV. And that's a weird thing, is like, the grunge period, I almost consider punk as like, we don't want to go on MTV or whatever, but that's what it became.
Yeah, and I can't thank the grunge artists enough for pushing out the hair metal bands of the late '80s, because rock and roll kind of went a little askew in the late '80s with those bands. So to see some flannel and a lot of guitars and not much in the way of fireworks or explosions. That was really cool, and I was just pleased to see that change. Personally, I don't,
Well, I
I
mean, have you seen the Dirt, the documentary? Well, not really a
oh
documentary
yes,
about.
yes, I've
Yeah.
seen yes,
So that looked like fun, but that's not sustainable. Obviously, people died,
yeah,
so you can't do that.
yeah, totally looked fun. I mean, even I had a little fun in the '80s, not like that, but it was it was a fun time. So, um, well, that's terrific. And Brian, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation, and I hope we can do it again, and maybe kind of think about moving the topic into the '90s on a future episode. Uh,
So you just call me old, but it's okay.
well, listen, the birthday
We're in the same room.
the birthday I'm gonna hit on April 27th, you don't want to have anything to do with this birthday. So you don't call yourself I am
Am I gonna have to repeat this in court someday?
you're probably gonna have to repeat it in court. Yeah. Yeah. But
Cool.
thank you so much. I really appreciate you jumping on today. And for the listeners, appreciate you taking the time to listen to these episodes. If anybody wants to jump on in future weeks and have a quick conversation about music, I'd love to do it with you. And again, thanks to her, KMS, and the Minifan Network. And I hope everyone has a great day. Brian, thanks again.
100%, man. Thank you very much.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Okay, hey, Brian.